The video lasts only a few moments. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than another 4th of July beach clip. Boats anchored in shallow water, music drifting across the shoreline, people laughing beneath the Mississippi sun. But investigators aren't watching it for the scenery. They're studying every second, every movement, every face. Because some believe this footage may capture the final hours of 20-year-old Nolan Wells before he mysteriously vanished on Horn Island. The clip exploded across social media almost overnight. Millions watched it, pausing frame after frame, convinced they had discovered something investigators had somehow missed. Some claimed they spotted Nolan standing near the shoreline. Others insisted the people in the video were complete strangers. No one knew who recorded it. No one knew exactly when it was filmed. And no one could even confirm whether Nolan appeared in it at all. Despite the growing speculation, investigators refused to jump to conclusions. Digital forensic specialists quietly began examining the file, searching for timestamps, GPS data, and any hidden metadata that could reveal where and when it had actually been recorded. For Nolan's family, the video represented something far more painful than another viral mystery. It represented hope. Because even after search teams had recovered Nolan's body, even after the funeral, they still didn't know exactly what had happened during those missing hours. Every new image, every new witness, every new rumor carried the possibility of finally answering the one question that had haunted them from the beginning. What really happened on Horn Island? But to understand why this single piece of footage captured the attention of the entire country, you first have to understand the young man at the center of the investigation. Long before television cameras arrived, long before lawyers demanded answers, and long before social media turned his disappearance into a national mystery, Nolan Wells was simply a hometown kid. He grew up in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, a quiet Gulf Coast community where high school football wasn't just a sport. It was part of everyday life. Neighbors watched children grow into young adults. Teachers knew students by name. Friday night football games filled the stadium with families who had known one another for years. It was the kind of town where everyone celebrated each other's successes, and everyone shared each other's heartbreak. Among those students was Nolan Xavier Wells. Friends describe him with words that appear again and again whenever someone talks about him. Kind, respectful, humble, the type of person who never met a stranger. Teachers remember a young man who paid attention in class and willingly helped classmates whenever they struggled. Coaches remember someone who never complained, even when asked to do the difficult jobs that rarely earned attention. While many receivers focused on catching touchdowns, Nolan willingly blocked for teammates. He celebrated other people's success as much as his own. That attitude earned him enormous respect inside the Ocean Springs football program. During his junior and senior seasons, Nolan developed into one of the area's most dependable wide receivers. He caught more than 60 passes, recorded over 700 receiving yards, and scored 10 touchdowns while helping Ocean Springs compete for regional championships. But statistics only told part of the story. People rarely remembered Nolan because of numbers. They remembered how he treated people. Former teammates later recalled how he constantly encouraged younger players during difficult practices. If someone made a mistake, Nolan was usually the first person helping them shake it off. Several players would later say he quietly taught them what leadership actually looked like, not by giving speeches, but simply by showing up every day with humility and consistency. Even opposing coaches noticed. One later admitted that preparing to play Ocean Springs meant preparing to face one of the hardest-working athletes on the field. Nolan competed fiercely, yet never lost his sportsmanship. His head coach described him as exactly the kind of young man every coach hopes to mentor, not simply because of athletic ability, but because of his character. After graduating from Ocean Springs High School in 2025, Nolan achieved another dream. He signed with Southwest Mississippi Community College to continue playing football. Signing day became one of the proudest moments of his life. He wasn't heading into the future alone. Several close friends and former teammates were joining him there as well. For Nolan, football had always been about family as much as competition. College coaches quickly noticed the same qualities everyone back home already knew. He worked hard, stayed humble, made friends easily. Professors appreciated his attitude. Teammates respected him. Within only a short time, Nolan became one of the most well-liked students on campus. His mother, Christine, often described her son in simple words. He loved everybody. According to her, Nolan genuinely believed people deserve kindness. Arguments never interested him. Conflict never defined him. He simply wanted peace between the people around him. His stepfather remembered a household filled with laughter, boat trips, family cookouts, and holidays spent together along Mississippi's Gulf Coast. Those memories reflected the life Nolan had always known. Growing up near the water meant beaches weren't vacation destinations. They were home. Weekends often included fishing, swimming, boating, or short trips to Mississippi's barrier islands. Among those islands sat Horn Island. Beautiful, remote, wild. For generations, families across the Gulf Coast visited its untouched beaches every summer, especially during holidays like Independence Day. Thousands considered it the perfect place to celebrate. For Nolan and his friends, spending the 4th of July, there felt completely ordinary. Nothing about the trip raised concern. No one reported arguments. No one expressed fear. No one imagined that this ordinary holiday gathering would become the final day anyone would see Nolan alive. As July 4th approached, Nolan returned home from college to spend time with family and reconnect with lifelong friends before the next football season. Plans came together naturally. A boat ride, friends, music, sunshine, just another summer memory waiting to happen. On the morning of Independence Day, Nolan boarded a boat with friends bound for Horn Island. The atmosphere was exactly what anyone would expect. Laughter echoed across the water. Boats filled the horizon. Families gathered on the beaches. Music drifted through the warm Gulf air. Nothing appeared unusual. Nothing suggested tragedy waited only hours away. By every account, it began as a perfect holiday. But before sunset, something happened. Somewhere between the crowded shoreline, the anchored boats, and the vast stretches of open water, Nolan Wells disappeared, and the desperate search that followed would soon capture the attention of the entire nation. When Nolan Wells stepped onto the boat that 4th of July morning, no one imagined they were witnessing the beginning of a mystery that would soon grip the entire country. Horn Island was alive with celebration. Dozens of boats floated just offshore. Families barbecued on the sand. Music echoed across the water while children splashed in the shallows. To anyone arriving that afternoon, it looked like the perfect Independence Day. But beneath the celebration, Horn Island carried a hidden danger. Unlike a public beach with lifeguards and emergency services, Horn Island is completely isolated. There are no roads, no hospitals, no permanent residents, no reliable cell service. Once visitors arrive by boat, they're largely on their own. If something goes wrong, help isn't just minutes away. It's miles across open water. That isolation would soon become one of the biggest obstacles investigators faced. According to family representatives and investigators, Nolan spent the afternoon with a group of friends enjoying a holiday like everyone else. Nothing about the day initially appeared unusual. Witnesses describe a relaxed atmosphere. People moved from boat to boat. Groups gathered along the shoreline. Some swam. Others played games in the sand. Many simply enjoyed the holiday under the blazing Mississippi sun. But sometime later that afternoon, something changed. Exactly what happened during those next few hours remains one of the biggest unanswered questions in the case. At some point, Nolan became separated from the people he had arrived with. Investigators would later learn another detail that immediately complicated the search. His phone reportedly wasn't with him. Instead, it had remained behind with friends. That meant investigators couldn't rely on GPS data or cellular tracking to reconstruct his movements. One of the most valuable investigative tools simply didn't exist. As daylight slowly began fading, concerns started growing. Friends searched nearby areas. They called his name. They checked neighboring boats. They asked other visitors if anyone had seen him. But no one could say exactly where Nolan had gone. What began as confusion quickly became panic. Eventually, authorities were notified that a young man had gone missing on Horn Island. Within hours, One of the largest search operations the Mississippi Gulf Coast had seen in years was underway. Multiple agencies responded: sheriff's deputies, Marine Patrol officers, National Park Service personnel, the United States Coast Guard, volunteer rescue organizations. Search boats crisscrossed the waters surrounding Horn Island. Helicopters swept overhead. Drones scanned miles of shoreline from above. Volunteers walked the beaches looking for any sign of Nolan. Investigators knew every passing hour reduced the chances of finding answers. But Horn Island wasn't making their job any easier. Stretching nearly 14 miles long, the barrier island constantly changes. Sandbars shift. Tides move unpredictably. Strong currents can carry objects surprisingly long distances in only a short period of time. Marine experts familiar with the area describe Horn Island as beautiful, but unforgiving. Water that appears calm near shore can quickly give way to deeper channels with much stronger currents. Even experienced swimmers can underestimate how quickly conditions change. Search teams face another challenge few people considered: holiday crowds. Although hundreds of people had visited the island that day, most were already returning home. Potential witnesses scattered across multiple counties before investigators even knew whom they needed to interview. Every departing boat represented another group of people who might have seen something important without realizing it. Authorities quickly issued a public appeal. If anyone had taken photographs, recorded videos, or remembered seeing Nolan during the holiday weekend, they were urged to come forward. Investigators hoped someone had unknowingly captured a critical clue. Meanwhile, Nolan's family waited. Every phone call became agonizing. Every update brought another wave of hope or disappointment. His mother, Christine, publicly pleaded with anyone who had visited Horn Island that weekend to check their phones. Maybe there was a photo in the background, maybe a short video, maybe something that could reveal where Nolan had been during those missing hours. Even the smallest clue could change everything. Days passed. Search crews continued working almost non-stop. Divers searched underwater. Boats combed surrounding waters. Aircraft repeatedly flew over the island. Volunteers refused to give up. The Ocean Springs community rallied around Nolan's family. Prayer vigils appeared across town. Football teammates gathered together. Churches organized support for the Wells family. The entire community held on to hope that Nolan would somehow be found alive. But with every passing day, that hope became harder to maintain. Then came the call no family ever wants to receive. Search crews discovered a body near the shoreline of Horn Island. At first, authorities couldn't immediately confirm the identity. Investigators worked carefully while Nolan's family waited through another unbearable period of uncertainty. Eventually, Coroner Bruce Lynn confirmed the heartbreaking news through dental records. The body was Nolan Wells. The search had ended, but the investigation had only just begun. Almost immediately, new questions replaced the old ones. How had Nolan ended up where he was found? Had he entered the water voluntarily? Had he become disoriented? Had an accident occurred? Or was there something investigators hadn't yet uncovered? An autopsy was conducted. Toxicology testing was ordered. Officials cautioned the public that many important answers would take time. Sheriff John Ledbetter later stated that investigators had found no immediate indication that drugs or alcohol played a role in Nolan's death. However, he emphasized that toxicology testing was still pending, and investigators would wait for scientific evidence before reaching any conclusions. For Nolan's loved ones, the uncertainty became almost as painful as the loss itself. They finally knew where Nolan was, but they still didn't know why he never came home. Attorney Ben Crump soon joined the family's legal team. Known nationally for representing families in high-profile cases, Crump publicly called for complete transparency throughout the investigation. The family, he argued, deserved every available answer. Civil rights leader Reverend Al Sharpton also stood beside Nolan's relatives during public appearances, drawing national media attention to what had initially been a local missing person case. Suddenly, television crews from across the country descended on Mississippi's Gulf Coast. What had begun as a tragic holiday disappearance became national news. Yet despite the growing attention, investigators remained cautious. They refused to speculate publicly. Instead, detectives quietly continued reviewing every available piece of evidence: witness interviews, boat movements, phone records, photographs, videos, and countless tips submitted by the public. For a brief moment, it appeared the investigation had entered its slow, methodical phase. The search was over. The public conversation began fading. Many believed there would be no major breakthrough. Then, everything changed. A previously unseen video suddenly appeared online. Within hours, millions of people had watched it. Some believed it captured Nolan during his final moments. Others insisted it proved absolutely nothing. But whether the footage contained answers or simply created more questions, it would soon become the most talked about piece of evidence in the entire investigation. Just when the investigation appeared to be slowing down, everything changed. Days after Nolan Wells' body was recovered, a short video suddenly surfaced online. At first, almost nobody paid attention to it. It looked like countless other cell phone clips recorded during the 4th of July celebrations on Horn Island. Boats anchored close together, people laughing along the shoreline, music playing in the background. But then someone noticed something. A social media user suggested one of the people in the video might be Nolan. Within hours, thousands of people began sharing the clip. By the following day, it had spread across multiple social media platforms. Millions of views, thousands of comments, and one question that nobody could answer: was Nolan actually in the footage? Investigators quickly became aware of the video's existence. Unlike the internet, however, they refused to make assumptions. Instead of announcing a breakthrough, detectives quietly added the clip to an ever-growing collection of evidence. Digital forensic specialists reportedly began examining the original file whenever possible. Their goal wasn't simply to identify faces. They wanted something much more important. When was the video recorded? Where was it recorded? Had it been edited? Was it even filmed on Horn Island? Those questions mattered far more than anything social media users believed they could see. Online, though, patience was in short supply. People slowed the video down frame by frame. Some circled individuals standing near the shoreline, claiming they had found Nolan. Others insisted they could hear familiar voices in the background. Several users even claimed they recognized specific boats anchored nearby. Before long, screenshots flooded the internet. Faces were highlighted with arrows. Names began appearing. People who had simply visited Horn Island that holiday suddenly found themselves accused of being connected to a tragedy. Investigators warned the public against jumping to conclusions. They reminded everyone that internet speculation could easily identify innocent people by mistake. They had already dealt with similar rumors earlier in the investigation. Photos unrelated to Nolan had circulated before. Videos from different dates had been falsely connected to case. Each rumor consumed valuable investigative time. Officials urged the public to allow detectives, not social media, to determine what the evidence actually showed. Behind the scenes, investigators continued building a much larger picture. The video was only one piece. They were also reviewing witness statements, phone records, boat movements, photographs submitted by visitors, emergency communications, autopsy findings, and laboratory testing still underway. Experienced investigators understood something many people online overlooked. One video almost never solves a complex investigation by itself. Context matters. A person appearing in a video doesn't automatically explain what happened before or afterward. Even if detectives confirmed Nolan appeared in the footage, they would still need to determine exactly when it was recorded, who was with him, what happened after the camera stopped rolling, and whether the video actually captured anything significant at all. Legal experts following the case made similar observations. Throughout the country, viral videos have often appeared to reveal shocking answers. Only later did investigators discover they showed unrelated events entirely. Sometimes they were recorded hours before an incident, sometimes days earlier, sometimes in completely different locations. That's why experienced detectives rarely rely on public opinion. They rely on evidence that can be verified. Meanwhile, Nolan's family continued waiting. The video represented another emotional crossroads. Some relatives reportedly couldn't bear to watch it. The possibility of seeing Nolan alive during his final hours was simply too painful. Others watched repeatedly, searching every frame, looking for something unmistakably familiar. A gesture, a shirt, a smile, anything that might finally provide clarity. But even those closest to Nolan admitted they couldn't say with certainty whether he actually appeared in the recording. Attorney Ben Crump continued pressing investigators for transparency. He emphasized that Nolan's family wasn't asking for speculation. They wanted facts, verified facts, nothing more, nothing less. As national media continued covering the investigation, another important reality became clear. Despite enormous public interest, authorities remained remarkably disciplined. They released very little information. That silence frustrated many people following the case. But experienced investigators often do exactly that. Prematurely revealing evidence can compromise interviews. It can influence witness memories. And in some cases, it can even jeopardize future legal proceedings. Sometimes, what investigators choose not to say is just as important as what they reveal publicly. As weeks passed, forensic work continued. Autopsy findings remained under review. Toxicology testing required additional time. Digital analysts continued examining electronic evidence. Detectives interviewed witnesses again and again, patiently comparing every statement against every available fact. Meanwhile, public attention never truly faded. Every new rumor reignited debate. Every unofficial claim generated another wave of online theories. Some people became convinced they already knew exactly what had happened. Others argued that there simply wasn't enough evidence to reach any conclusion. The truth remained somewhere in between. Cases like Nolan's remind us why investigators move carefully. Real investigations are rarely solved in a single dramatic moment. They're built piece by piece, interview by interview, photograph by photograph, video by video. Sometimes the smallest overlooked detail becomes a breakthrough. Other times, the most talked about evidence ultimately changes nothing. At the time of this recording, investigators have continued examining every available lead while urging the public to separate verified facts from online speculation. What happened during Nolan Wells' final hours remains the central question. His family continues asking for answers. His friends continue remembering the young man they knew long before national headlines ever carried his name. And the Ocean Spring community continues mourning the loss of a son, teammate, classmate, and friend whose life touched far more people than anyone realized until he was gone. Perhaps one day investigators will be able to explain every missing hour. Perhaps the newly surfaced footage will eventually prove significant. Or perhaps it will become another reminder that not every viral video tells the story people believe it does. Until then, the mystery surrounding Nolan Wells remains a case defined not by internet theories, but by a family's search for truth. Because behind every headline, every investigation, and every viral clip was a young man who left home on what should have been an ordinary holiday with friends, never knowing it would be his last.